Thanks for stopping by today. I'm making a painting inspired by a coworker, and the colors I'm using today are white, black, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, leaf green, hooker's green, and violet. So the first thing I'm going to do is trace out the art for what I'm going to be drawing. It's going to be a man running. I'm using this outline from Google just to create the structure. I actually made it a little bigger just to fill out the page a little more. And right now I'm making the horizons, and I'm gonna start painting on top with the leaf green just to give a little bit of depth. I'm still working on 3 dimension but I'm using the wet method as far as wetting the canvas first and then applying the color. It helps to saturate it a little bit better and helps to soften the colors, especially if you're wanting to do the depth as far as foreground, middle ground, background. So I'm coloring along the outline of the torso and getting all of those colors for the very far of the background. I'm getting very particular with it because I wanted to have all the colors line up perfectly and also towards the top where the wood in the back meets the fabric, you can see all those little lines end up forming with the puddles of water. So I keep trying to block those out while still having uniformity in the lines. So for the middle ground, this is going to be what I consider to be grass on the ground. And what I'm doing now is again doing that wet technique as far as adding water on the canvas. And then I'm going to go in with a little mix of my hooker's green and the leaf green to not be too dark but a little bit blended, and just create a little bit of grass in the middle ground. And I'm going to be adding that around the midsection and the legs, and then I'll show you a little bit more what I do on the very bottom, for I guess the very foreground. I wanted to do jagged lines to mimic the look of grass just because they don't always grow perfectly straight. They're a little wavy, a little curvy. So I wanted all the edges to be jagged as far as to show the realistic side of nature as abstract as all of this is getting to be. So in the foreground, I'm sorry it's cut off a little bit, but I'm trying to make sure it looks like dirt. So I'm using the burnt sienna on the bottom and just covering the whole bottom, and then when it meets the mix of the leaf green and the hooker's green in the middle, I just kind of use both of those colors to overlap, and that should show up in just a minute or so. It was actually quite good using all these colors. It reminded me of Bob Ross because I know that burnt sienna comes up a lot in his art, that one and phthalo green or phthalo blue, and it reminded me a lot of him. And as you can see, I'm using the jagged lines again on the bottom. That just helps, in my mind at least, to show the kind of chaos of nature as well as the beauty of it. I'm also painting along the edges of the board. That just helps it be clean all the way around. So in nice Bob Ross technique, I'm going to add some trees in the background, and I'm using his technique as far as using the flat end of the brush and just making the leaves fan out. And I don't know if these trees are very realistic as far as the place where I live, but they're very beautiful, so I just wanted to go ahead and put them on there. I think they're a very nice touch, so I'm happy with it. I'm happy with how they turned out. And as far as uniformity, I didn't want it to be too symmetrical because nature isn't always symmetrical. So I wanted to put one a little bit lower than the others, a little bit farther, a little bit closer to the person running. And I thought overall it turned out well. I wanted to fill in the lines a little bit more so it wouldn't look as detailed. So that's why I'm going over it a little bit more with a brush. And at one point I had to stand up and paint because I couldn't get my hand to not block everything and not smudge it all as well. So I'll have to work on the setup. And this one that I'm painting right now, I wanted it to kind of extend far beyond the outer edges of the canvas, and I thought that was a pretty cool perspective as far as this is such a huge tree, and maybe it's not just one tree, maybe it's a few trees. So now as I'm putting in the trunks of the trees, I'm just adding in a little bit more detail to make it a little more realistic, but also not too much detail that you'll focus on those in the background versus the person. And then that little tree trunk kind of looks like a little bunny. I thought that was so cute. So now I just wanted to fine tune the point of horizon. I didn't want it to be a straight line or see the explicit definitions in it. So I just went over with a little bit more water and just kind of fine-tune those lines and just kind of spread everything out a little bit and kind of blended it so the colors weren't that harsh. Right now I'm using water to erase some of the lines that kind of came over my outline into the body. So this is a good way, if you're using watercolor, that you can erase your mistakes. Now my friend's favorite color is purple, and from the story that he told me, he ran shirtless after work, and so I wanted to give him purple pants. And I am not very good yet with painting people, like realistic shapes, so I'm gonna work on it. That's gonna be something to look forward to, the improvement. So I'm not really sure how fabric is supposed to sort of form to the body as time goes on, so we'll just work with it as it is now, and he'll just be wearing tights or leggings. That's what they're called, leggings. So I went ahead and added in the color for the skin, and as I'm painting right now, I know it looks sort of like orange, or yeah, like orange brownish, but once it dries out and looks like normal, almost tan skin, which I think matches his very well too. I think the torso came out a little broader than I expected or that I intended, and in the end it ends up looking not totally weird. But the first picture that I made that was a little smaller, I think it was more proportionate to the body, the legs. So I'll just need to work on that a little bit more in the future. And as far as the face, I am not very good with the faces, so I thought maybe I could just do a side view and then have the hair cover the rest of the face. So that was my first attempt coloring in, and I wanted to give him black shoes because my friend wears black sneakers to work a lot. So I wanted to go ahead and do that, and I think it turned out well. The color isn't as popping as I would like it to be, but for now it's doing very well. So I tried to leave a little space out for his ear because I forgot to color in a spot for his ear, and also I wanted to just kind of take into account his hair. He has very beautiful hair. This picture does not do it justice. It is so amazing and it's so beautiful. Like, no matter how he wears it, I'm just in awe all the time. And this really cool technique that I'm going to do right now is I just fanned out a dry brush and just use that to create these little feather wisps of hair, like you'll see sort of like a halo around a person whenever they're standing under a light fixture. So I use that to kind of give a little bit of softness to the edges, and it provides a little bit more baby hair in the front, and it kind of softens everything overall. So what I'm doing now is just going over the hair with more black paint, and as I'm doing it, I'm noticing that the outline that I had for the head is still visible, and I did not want it to be visible. I also realized that I had all of my lines still there, so I need to remember to erase those before I start painting. So I had to go back in and cover over a little bit of the arm, and that kind of messed with the paint a little bit. I ended up making it work. I did also use these watercolor markers that I got from another friend of mine, and these have been such an amazing tool. I like to do outlines at the end of my work because it really helps to give definition and give detail without having to do like fine-tune watercolor with the brushes, because those don't always have good tips when you're thinking about the bristles. So this little set of watercolor markers that I have been such a great help. And I didn't want to do any details for the arm that the hair is covering, so I thought to just leave it as is. The face, it kind of looked like something from Bob's Burgers, which, no offense to Bob's Burgers, but I want to do you guys justice and I want to do my friend justice, and I did not think that this was doing him justice, so I'll need to fix that towards the end. What I did decide to do is to go over the shoes to make them a little darker and give them a little bit more definition around the ankle, so they come up a little bit versus being just the one flat space at the top. And I also went in with the marker to give a little more color and a little more depth to the hair. What I did do now was I added in water, which was the wrong thing to do because now it just fades everything in the middle, which is right about where I wanted the most darkness to be, to mask that little bit at the top where the head was drawn in. So off camera I went ahead and waited for it to dry a little bit and fixed it that way. These lines that I'm drawing represent some of the lines on one of the tracksuits that he wears sometimes, and I don't want to call it out in case I'm not supposed to mention that in my videos, but yeah, altogether I thought it went really well,